They say time heals all wounds, but some wounds fester in silence. I'm Grace, born in 1955 in Abia State, Nigeria. Back in 1979, I vanished from a convent with 4 other nuns after discovering horrors behind its holy walls. I felt afraid, silenced, betrayed, but then something happened. Today, at 70, I'm finally sharing this because the truth matters no matter how long it hides. If you're listening, drop your location below and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs courage. I first arrived at Havenwood Convent when I was just 18. I was eager, hopeful, and hungry for a life that felt close to God. The convent sat at the edge of a quiet hill in Anambra, a colonial-era building surrounded by mango trees and silence. Inside, the air always smelled like candle wax and old books. The nuns were kind at first, especially Mother Agnes, a strict but fair woman with silver hair and a calm gaze. Life was simple. Prayers at dawn, chores at noon, reflection by dusk. Everything changed in 1977 when Father Michael arrived. He was young, handsome, with a charming smile and deep eyes that looked too long into yours. The parish called him the Holy Flame, and at first we believed it. But I noticed small things. He would brush too close, ask about my personal thoughts during confession. Once he asked what I wore to sleep. I laughed it off then. I didn't want to believe evil could wear a collar. But deep down I knew. Sister Sarah, bless her young heart, was only 20. Naive and soft-spoken, she confided in me that Father Michael made her uncomfortable. He touched my arm during confession, she whispered, eyes darting. He said I was pure. I told her to speak to Mother Agnes. She did. But the next day, Sarah was assigned kitchen duty alone with Father Michael. I saw the fear in her eyes when she returned. Her hands shook. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I went to Mother Agnes myself, heart pounding. Something is wrong, I said. She sighed, then closed the chapel door behind us. Grace, she said gently, some truths are too heavy for one person to carry. We pray. We stay silent. I couldn't believe it. The woman I trusted, protective like a mother, was telling me to let it go. That night, I cried in the chapel until my knees went numb. I thought about leaving, but leaving meant the others would stay. So I stayed. Then it got worse. One evening, I heard sobbing from the east corridor. I followed the sound and found Sister Sarah sitting on the floor, her habit torn, her cheek red from a slap. She didn't speak. She just shook her head over and over again like a broken metronome. That's when I knew we were no longer safe in that place. I gathered the others. Sister Mary, strong but soft-hearted. Sister Eleanor, quiet and intelligent, she kept notes on everything. Sister Chica, just 19 and always scared. We locked ourselves in the laundry room that night and whispered through the dark. We have to leave, I said. He won't stop. Eleanor pulled out her little notebook, trembling. I've been writing everything. Names, dates, confessions. Felt like hope. We couldn't go to the police. The convent had powerful connections. Father Michael had friends in high places. We needed help from outside. That's when we thought of Mr. Miller, the man who delivered flour and supplies every Friday. He always lingered a bit longer than necessary, chatting with Sister Mary. I asked her to speak to him. She did. He agreed to help. You didn't hear it from me, he said, eyes narrowed. But that priest? He's got skeletons. The plan was simple. Climb the eastern wall after evening prayer, sneak out through the garden shed, and Mr. Miller would wait behind the mango grove. We had one chance. On the day, the rain came down like God was crying with us. Thunder hit our footsteps. Eleanor tucked her notebook into her robe. Sarah held my hand so tight it went numb. We climbed. We ran. We didn't look back. Mr. Miller's truck took us to his cousin's house in Ebonyi first. Then another ride, another lie, another city. Eventually, we ended up in Cleveland, America, thanks to Miller's family friend who helped us get fake documents. We called ourselves the Sisters of Mercy. We found work in a garment factory run by an old Catholic woman who asked no questions. Life was hard, but at least it wasn't terrifying. Still, peace never lasted. Sister Sarah had nightmares. Sister Mary started drinking wine behind closed doors. Eleanor clung to her notebook like a life raft. We moved again to Charlotte, North Carolina, renting a 2-bedroom apartment. We'd share meals, say silent prayers, but never mentioned Havenwood. It was a ghost that haunted us. Then one day, Sister Eleanor collapsed at work. Stroke. She never woke up. I found her notebook inside her pillowcase. It had everything: Father Michael's offenses, confessions, drawings, descriptions. It broke me, but it also ignited something. She hadn't just written to remember, she had written for justice. That night I couldn't sleep. I watched the rain fall on our little window and whispered, "Eleanor, I'll finish it." Sister Mary passed 2 years later. Liver failure. Sarah moved to Georgia. Chica disappeared. I was alone now. I lived quietly, worked at a bookstore, and spoke to no one about the past. But then, one Sunday morning, I was scrolling Facebook and saw a familiar name, Monsignor Michael. He was still alive. Still in Havenwood. Still celebrated. My stomach turned. But there was another name mentioned, Father John. A young priest, newly assigned to help the aging Monsignor. I took a risk. I sent a letter to the parish office under a fake name. I said I needed confession from someone who truly listened. Father John replied. He agreed to meet me at a small chapel just outside the city. I wore black, carried Eleanor's notebook in a brown envelope. When I saw Father John, I saw confusion in his eyes. "I'm here because the church failed us," I said. "And now you have a chance to do what's right." I handed him the envelope. "Read, pray, then choose." He opened it, and with each page his face paled. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I thought he had ignored me. Then a letter arrived unsigned. It said, "Investigation opened. Pray for truth." That's all. But I knew. Something had started. I walked outside into the sunlight and smiled for the first time in decades. I had shaken the walls of that place from halfway across the world. The months that followed were agonizing. Every day, I watched the mailbox like a child waiting for Christmas. I didn't know if Father John had succeeded, if he'd been silenced, or if Monsignor Michael had buried the truth again. But then, 6 months after I gave him Eleanor's notebook, a news article changed everything. Havenwood Parish under investigation. Beneath it, a photo of Father Michael, still smug, but older, weaker, standing at the church gates. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just stood there, shaking, whispering, "Eleanor, we're coming home." They tried to keep the investigation quiet, but God has a way of exposing rot, even in high places. Reports leaked. Allegations surfaced. Not just us others. A janitor. A choir boy. A housekeeper who'd been dismissed after accusing Father Michael in the early 80s. It was like the dam had finally burst, and the filth poured out for all to see. But none of the victims had names. None of the stories had teeth. Until I came forward. I booked a flight to Nigeria for the first time in 40 years. I was no longer the timid girl who ran barefoot through mango groves. My back was straighter, my voice firmer. But I was scared, afraid of being dismissed, of being blamed, or worse, ignored. I arrived in Anambra with only a small suitcase and Eleanor's notebook pressed to my chest like a Bible. When I stepped off the plane, I whispered, "Let the truth rise." The next day, I walked into Havenwood Parish, dressed like any ordinary woman. The place looked smaller than I remembered, like time had shrunk it. A young woman was cleaning the pews. She looked up. "Can I help you?" I smiled. "Yes. Tell Father John that Sister Grace has come home." Her eyes widened. She knew the name. Father John hugged me like I was his mother. "They tried to stop the inquiry," he said, his voice shaking. "But your records, they were undeniable." The bishop was speechless. "We confronted Monsignor Michael last week. He denied it all. But with witnesses stepping forward, he's suspended until further notice. And Grace, they're talking about defrocking him." I sat on the same bench where I once confessed my sins as a teenager. But this time I spoke not of guilt but of war. "They buried our stories, Father," I said. "Not anymore." He nodded. "Would you be willing to testify?" I paused. I thought about Sarah's screams, Mary's silence, Eleanor's notebook. "Yes," I said. "I will not die with this story inside me." The church tribunal was held in Lagos. Private, quiet, and full of uncomfortable stares. I was the oldest witness, the only one who had physical records. They questioned everything. Why we didn't come forward sooner. Why we didn't go to the police. Why we ran. I looked them in the eye and said, "We were children. We were cloistered. And we were alone. Would you have believed us then? You barely believe me now." The lawyer for the diocese tried to poke holes in Eleanor's notes. "These could be fabricated," he said. "They're just a girl's journal." I opened my purse and pulled out a photo Eleanor's torn habit from the night we escaped. Bloodstained. Hidden for years. I placed it on the table. She didn't imagine that. When Monsignor Michael finally walked in, I barely recognized him. The once arrogant priest now moved with a cane, his skin loose around his bones. But his eyes, those cruel, calculating eyes, they hadn't aged a day. He stared at me and smirked. That was his mistake. As I didn't flinch. "You remember me?" I asked. "Because I never forgot you." He denied everything. "These are fantasies," he hissed. "That convent was my mission. Those girls were delusional." But then came the testimonies. From the janitor. From the housekeeper. Even from a former altar boy who now lived in Abuja. One by one, voices filled the room. Some trembled. Some wept. But all of them pointed to the same shadow, Father Michael. Took weeks. The final verdict arrived in a brown envelope delivered to my cousin's home. I sat on the porch, the sun bleeding into the horizon. I opened the letter with shaking hands. "Monsignor Michael has been defrocked. Further legal actions pending." I let the paper fall and exhaled. It was over. No, not over. Begun. Because justice doesn't end with punishment. It ends with healing. With the support of Father John and the local women's ministry, we founded the St. Mary of Peace Center, a sanctuary for women who had survived abuse in religious spaces. The first time I stood at the doorway of our little haven, I saw a young girl step inside barefoot, bruised, holding a rosary. I took her hand. "You're safe now," I said. "No more secrets." Some days I sit in my office at the center, staring at the only photo I have of the five of us. Young, smiling, wearing white habits before the storm came. Sister Sarah passed last year. Breast cancer. She called me a week before, said, "You did it, Grace. You gave us back our names." I cried for hours after that. Now I wear black. Not for mourning but for strength. I speak in churches, schools, even government forums. I tell them, your silence is not holiness. Your fear is not obedience. And I watch women lift their chins higher each time. Sometimes people ask me, "Do you hate him?" After all these years. And I say no. I don't hate him. I outlived him. I exposed him. I turned his silence into stories, his secrets into shields. I am not angry, I am finished. So here I am, 70 years old and finally at peace. I've seen hell dressed in robes. I've heard God in the scream of a sister fighting back. I've felt the holy fire of truth. And I've learned something the world needs to hear. Your pain is valid. Your silence does not protect you. Your truth, no matter how buried, can rise again. Don't wait 40 years to be free. Like this video if it moved you. Subscribe for more powerful stories. Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone. And tell me in the comments, what truth are you still holding inside?
Moral.
Even in darkness, the truth waits patiently for light. Healing begins with courage, and justice starts the moment we choose to speak.